Welcome to the Finance Savvy CEO series. I'm your host, Marguerite Presley Davis, former Wall Street financial analyst turned financial strategist for small business owners and entrepreneurs, a financial expert, angel investor, speaker, author, and creator of Your Profit Playbook. This is a series where I take you by the hand to calm the confusion and overwhelm over finances, to give you step-by-step strategies to help you master the financial side to running a business and ultimately transform you into a finance-savvy CEO. Hi, you guys. I am super excited to talk to you about paying yourself today. It is a super important topic, and I get ask the question all the time, do I pay myself or do I reinvest in my business? And I'm going to tell you today that you can have your cake, eat it too, pay yourself and reinvest, and I'm going to show you exactly how to go about doing that. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, if you're just starting your business or you've been in business for a while, you may be struggling with the concept of paying yourself consistently. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, small business, which if you're listening in, I am sure that you are, the way you get paid can be a little bit different than you thought when you were working for corporate and you got that consistent paycheck. You could, without a doubt, know when that paycheck was going to come. You were going to know how much it was, and you were set. Now, I get it. When you go into business for yourself, it's really easy to maybe have the challenge, I'll say, or the struggle with, how do I pay myself? When do I pay myself? How much do I pay myself? Or should I even be paying myself? And here's the answer in short, and then we'll get into the details. Yes, 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 pay yourself. Let me ask you a question. Would you ever think that someone would work for you and not want to get paid? Would you ever expect someone to work for you and not get paid? The answer is no. We would never even expect somebody to work for us and not get paid. Well, it goes for you the exact same way. As a business owner, you should never not get paid. Treat yourself with that same respect and kindness that you would give someone else and pay yourself. So, here's the key. What I'm going to talk through today are two different areas that you can pick to pay yourself. But what you'll learn today is I'm going to tell you, have your cake, eat it too, pay yourself in two different spots. And then one of the things that I want to go into a bit with you guys too as well is I want to talk about where it can get confusing as far as, am I ready to pay myself? Because there are different nuances as far as what stage you're at in your business, what your lifestyle goals are, what you have the appetite to forego or not to forego. And I'll tell you a story kind of about my personal business, one of the very first startups that I had, to kind of illustrate that point to you. But I'm going to dive right into the two areas where you can pay yourself. So in order to do that, I first have to start from the basics, right? We know that the revenue that we generate in our business minus the expenses that it takes to generate that revenue ultimately leaves us with profit, okay? Profit is what you have left over from those sales after you've paid out all of your expenses. So we're going to focus on the first spot where you can pay yourself. Now, it does not matter if you're a maker of goods or you provide a service. There is, for yourself as the business owner, time that you put into working for yourself. So think about what I said earlier about when you worked for a corporation, or maybe you never have, but if you work for a corporation, you can expect a paycheck, okay? Now, let's make the parallel to you as a business owner. The first place that you can pay yourself is as an expense, right? As that expense that is that owner's pay, your salary as the owner. Now, where that hits, when we talked about the revenue, and then you have the expenses is where your pay comes from. So say you sell a widget, right? And that widget cost you, and you sold that widget, let's say the price that you charged for that was $20. Well, of that $20, that you charged a customer for that widget that you made, there's a part of that now is your expenses that I'm telling you should be your pay. You want to determine what your pay is up front, because the key is to have it consistent so that you know for every dollar that you make in your business, how much you as the business owner, how much you're going to make. Now, I know the next question that you guys are probably thinking is, well, Marguerite, how do I know how much to pay myself out of that $1? Well, think of it this way. If you were searching for a job, you're going to look and you're going to try to find out, well, how much does this, job, how much does it pay? There's typically an average salary range for certain jobs. You can go to different places like freelancers.com, you can go to salaries.com and start to get a feel for what that wage is or what that rate is for what you're doing. And that's a guardrail, you guys. That's a guardrail to get you to answer the question for yourself. Well, how much should I actually be paying myself, right? Like, what should that check be for myself? And I want you to use that as your North Star to answer that. Of every dollar I make, how much should I be keeping, right? Now, another guardrail that you can use is, it's more of an approach of, let's look from the top down, right? And when I say the top down, what I mean by that is, like, what are your lifestyle needs? What do you need to be paying yourself in order to contribute or sustain the lifestyle that you desire? That's how you get to start thinking about, well, how much do I pay myself, right? So that's the first place, right? So again, you've made a sale. Now there's an expense, what it costs to deliver that sale. And that's where you're going to pay yourself first, that paycheck, right? Now, I told you I'm going to tell you the second place that you can pay yourself. Now remember, you have your revenues minus those expenses, and that leaves you with profits, okay? Now the second place you can pay yourself is the profits, meaning you've generated that sale, you've taken out all of the expenses that you've needed, right, to deliver on that sale, and what you have left over is profits. Now, out of those profits, there's two things that you can do. You can take that profit and you can pay it to yourself. What's what I'll call, you can pay yourself a bonus, right? Just think about if you worked at a company before, there may be year-end bonuses, quarterly bonuses, and it's based upon what those profits look like, right? So you could then say, out of that profit I make, I'm going to pay myself a bonus out of it, right? And you could take all of those profits and you could pay yourself. So the first place would have been paying yourself the paycheck, and then number two would be paying yourself out of the profits. Those are the two places. So we're clear on that. Those are the two places. Now, what I want to be clear is, I'm going to show you how you can pay yourself in both spots, as well as still reinvest in your business. Okay, so let's stick with the second part now, where we say that I've paid myself out of those profits, right? So what was left after I paid my expenses? I had this profit, paid myself there. Now, I want to teach you about a concept now that's called your reinvestment rate. Your reinvestment rate is basically, out of those profits that I have left, how much do I take and reinvest in my business? And then how much do I pay out as dividends? Okay, that's simply what it means. And when I say dividends, it's the exact same thing I mean when I said bonus. So we'll just be consistent and say, of that profit, what am I reinvesting into my business and what am I paying out to myself as a bonus? Okay, so with that profit, what I'm going to show you is that when you determine how much you want to reinvest in your business, right? And it's going to be a percent of whatever you make in profits. I want you to have a percentage of that you're comfortable with reinvesting back into your business. Now, I do not recommend, and again, we'll talk about this in a little bit, taking all of that money and reinvesting it back into your business. You want to set a percent, and you want to set a percent that's based on your financial plan of what you need of that money that's left to put back into your business to fuel your future goals. Now, you're going to take some and you're going to reinvest it and you're going to put it into your business. And now what you're going to do with the other portion that's left of the profits is you're going to pay yourself out that bonus check, meaning you're comfortable with what you're reinvesting, and what's left of it you're taking, and you are applauding yourself for all of your hard work. So now hopefully you see what I mean by double dipping. So one, I want you to always pay yourself that consistent paycheck, that salary, that baseline level that you're comfortable with, that no matter what happens out of every sale, you know that you're getting paid out of it. And that's going to go into your operating, that's your expenses. So that's the first place that you're going to pay yourself. And now you're going to double dip, and you're going to double dip into that profit that's left over here, and you're going to pay yourself a bonus out of once you've taken out of that pie what you're reinvesting. There's going to be a portion left, and that portion that's left, you're then going to pay yourself a bonus or your team members a bonus, but whatever it is, that is going to bonus pay. Okay? Now, I know what question you're probably thinking of next, all right? And it's, well, does this hold true for every stage that I'm at in my business? And I'm going to tell you the concept, yes, stays true, but I'm going to show you the nuances. Now, one of the things that will change is as you go through different stages of your business, the amount of money that you reinvest within your business may change. And now that reinvestment of how much of that dollars of profit that you're reinvesting into your business, that's going to change depending on what that financial plan is as far as what you're funding for the future. And if you have any questions about financial plans, make sure you go back and listen to the previous podcast I did where I talk all about financial planning and how you do that for your business, okay? So I'll make sure to include the link where you can go and find that episode. So that's the first thing. Yes, like that reinvestment rate will change, but the concept stays the same. Now, the second nuance that I want to call out, because this is incredibly important, and this is where I promised that I was going to tell you a story about my very first tech startup I had and how I thought about the reinvestment rate there. So my very first tech startup that I had, I was working full-time when I started it. So I had a full-blown salary that I was bringing in. My husband's bringing in his full-time salary as well. So when I started that company, it wasn't important for me to take money out of the business to pay myself because I was already sufficiently paid through the income that I was generating and my husband's income that we were using to fuel our lifestyles, okay? So for me, I had a full-time job. My lifestyle needs were completely covered. So instead, I used every dollar of profit that I made, I put it back into the business so we could fuel the growth. Now, that gets me to a second important point there. I want you to think about, where are you in your lifestyle overall? Can you afford to not take money out of your business and reinvest it? Because I'm here to tell you, yes, there are advantages to taking the profits out and reinvesting 100% of it into your business. And the advantage is you'll just grow a little bit quicker. But that's not a reality for everyone, and it's not a sustainable reality for a long period of time. It's just that you have to make that conscious decision, like, am I okay in my lifestyle right now to be able to reinvest 100% of my profits back into my business? And that's you being very clear on what your goals are for your business and where you are in your lifestyle. And I'll say the second kicker there is when I talk about things like reinvesting so you can grow and scale your business, the key is when I made the decision in my business and my first tech startup, it was because of how I had set up my funding model. I didn't want to take in outside investors. I didn't want to go the VC route. I wanted to maintain 100% control of my tech company. So because of that, I wanted to grow it organically through myself, through the funding that I put in and through the funding that we've reinvested through those profits. So because I was okay that yes, we'll grow a little bit slower if I'm only funding it myself and funding it through profits versus had I gone out and gotten additional funding through VCs, PEs, angel investors, the whole nine. But I was okay with that because I had a clear vision on the trajectory that I wanted to take the business. And you'll also hear me talk about that too in the financial planning podcast, and again I'll put the link here, is about just being clear on what those goals are, because for me I knew how I wanted to grow and the organic growth that I wanted, so I was okay with growing slower with my own capital, and I knew how far that would get me with reinvesting the profits. So that's the nuance that I want to again just summarize to be clear on, is what are those future growth efforts that you need for your business? What is it going to entail so that you know how much you need to reinvest to get you there, and that's what your financial plan is going to help you map out a bit. Okay, so I know that this one was a lot, you guys, but it is such an important topic of paying yourself. There's too many entrepreneurs I see that do not pay themselves, and not paying yourself is not like a badge of honor. Like, no, you definitely need to have that plan in place of how you're going to pay yourself on a consistent basis, on a steady basis, because you would never want someone to work for you for free. That wouldn't be fair to them, and it's not fair to yourself to work for free either. So, what I wanted to be clear on is the two places that you can actually pay yourself. One, out of the expenses, your salary right up front out of those operating expenses. And then two, paying yourself out of the profits. And what I recommend is double dipping. Do not skip out on paying yourself consistently through your expenses, is your operating expenses. But there's also another opportunity to pay yourself again out of the profits that you make in the form of a bonus. Okay? Make sure that you're super clear on what your goals are, right? What are your future growth needs, so that you know how much you need to be reinvesting to be able to fund that in the future. Make sure that you are super clear on what does your lifestyle require? What do you need? What are you responsible for? What is the ongoing salaries for the type of role that you play in your company, right? To help you get really clear on what you're going to pay yourself consistently. So that is the key, you guys. I really hope that you found this valuable, and you can definitely now see different places that you can pay yourself, and that you make the decision to, if you're not paying yourself, to stop doing that right away. And if you are paying yourself already, kudos to you, and make sure you're taking advantage of what I call double dipping, paying yourself twice, once as the salary and again as the bonus. So thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. I will talk to you next week.